Do animals fall in love? The truth?
Aren't you tired of AI? Give me a chance then. Have you ever wondered if an animal remembers the person who saved its life? A dog pulled from a frozen river, a horse rescued from a burning stable, a sea turtle cut free from a fishing net, a whale freed after days tangled in a heavy ropes. Years later, if they saw that person again, would they know? Most people think the answer is obvious. Of course they would. How could they forget? After all, if someone saved your life, you would remember them forever, right? But that's not actually the question scientists have been trying to answer. Real answer is far stranger than most people realize. Because before we can ask whether animals remember their rescuers, we first have to understand something much more fundamental. What does memory actually look like inside an animal's mind? Humans remember events as stories. We remember where we were, who was there, what happened, how we felt. Years later, we can replay those moments in our heads, almost like a movie. But animals don't necessarily experience memory like that. A dog doesn't sit under a tree wondering how different life would have been if it had never been adopted. A horse doesn't spend its afternoon reflecting on the worst day of its life. At least not in the way humans do. And yet, science has revealed something remarkable. Animals remember far more than we once believed. In fact, some animals possess memory abilities that seem almost impossible. For decades, scientists underestimated animals' intelligence. They assumed most animals were creatures of instincts, living entirely in the present, reacting to whatever happened around them, moment by moment. But as researchers began studying animal cognition more closely, that picture started to fall apart. One experiment after another revealed the same surprising truth. Animals are paying attention much more than we realize. Take elephants. For years, researchers working in Africa noticed something unusual. Elephants seemed capable of recognizing specific individuals after extremely long periods of separation. Not just another elephants, humans too. The animals responded differently, as if they remembered exactly who they were dealing with. And elephants aren't the only ones. Dogs. Dogs may be even more impressive. Anyone who has ever owned a dog has probably heard stories about emotional reunions. A soldier returning home after deployment. An owner finding a lost dog after months of separation. The reaction can be extraordinary. Jumping, whining, running in circles, tails wagging uncontrollably. Tails wagging uncontrollably. For years, many scientists treated these stories cautiously. People often see what they want to see, but modern research has started painting a different picture. Dogs don't simply remember people, they remember experiences associated with people. To a dog, a human is not a merely. To a dog, a human is not merely a face, or a voice, or a scent. A human becomes a collection of associations. Food, safety, comfort, protection, affection, trust, and those associations can remain incredibly powerful, sometimes for years. But here's where things become complicated, because remembering someone and understanding what they did for you are not the same thing. A rescued dog might remember its rescuer, but does it understand that it was rescued? Does it understand intention? Does it understand sacrifice? For decades, scientists weren't sure, and honestly, many still aren't. Because answering that question requires understanding something incredibly difficult: how animals interpret human actions. Interpret. And what researchers discovered was fascinating. Across multiple species, animals seem surprisingly good at identifying helpful individuals. Dogs quickly learn which human assists them when solving problems. Horses often develop preferences for handlers who consistently provide positive experiences. Ravens can remember people who treated them kindly. They can also remember people who treated them badly for years. sometimes much longer than anyone expected. And perhaps the most surprising example comes from animals that don't seem particularly emotional at all. Fish. For decades, fish were viewed as creatures with extremely limited memory. There was even a popular myth that fish could only remember things for a few seconds. You've heard that, right? It turns out that wasn't true, not even close. Researchers discovered that many fish complex tasks, recognize patterns, navigate environments, and remember information for months. Some can even recognize individual humans. The more the scientists looked, the more memory they found everywhere. And that discovery led to a fascinating realization. Animals may be observing us far more carefully than we observe them. Think about it. You might see a bird at a park and forget it moments later, but the bird may not forget you. You might feed a stray dog once and move on with your day. The dog might not. You might rescue an injured animal and assume it eventually forgets you. But what if it didn't? What if somewhere inside its mind a memory remained? Researchers studying crows uncovered one of the most famous examples of animal memory. In an experiment, scientists wore distinctive masks tagging wild crows. The experience wasn't pleasant for the birds. Years later, the crows still reacted aggressively to those same masks. Not only that, they appeared to teach other crows to fear them as well. The memory spread through the population. A single encounter remembered for years, passed to others. The implications were astonishing because it suggested something much deeper than simple recognition. It suggested social memory, the ability to remember individuals, and to attach meaning to those memories. Good, bad, safe, dangerous, helpful, threatening. The animal kingdom was keeping records. Not written records, not stories, not diaries, but records nonetheless. Which brings us back to our original question. What happens when the individual attached to that memory is a rescuer? What happens when the person associated with that memory is connected to one of the most important moments in an animal's life? Because that's where things start to get truly interesting.